One idea. That's all that it takes to change your life forever. When I first started writing stories at the age of 8 years old, I never knew that it would change the trajectory of my entire existence forever. And it all started with one idea. Now, while this video will mostly be talking about my experiences as an aspiring author, I'm sure most of what I'm going to say can be applicable to almost any creative endeavor. Whether you're an inspiring actor or a sculptor or a painter or whatever hobby it is that you do, I'm sure that you can get some value from this video. Now, let me start from the very beginning. I grew up as an only child to a single mother. That meant that I spent a lot of my time alone. I had to make my own fun. I spent most of my early years playing with action figures and coming up with crazy, insane stories to pass the time. That all changed though when my mother gave me a clipboard and a stack of lined paper and told me to start writing stories to keep me occupied. At first I was like, I don't really know about this, but I always loved reading, and even since a kid, I read a few grades above my grade level. So I gave it a try. Me and my cousin would both write stories while we sat in the back seat of my mom's car while she ran errands. It was a good way to pass the time and keep us occupied. But eventually, my cousin stopped writing, but I didn't. Ever since that moment where I first got that clipboard, I felt like I was born to create worlds out of words. My first story as a kid was nothing special. In fact, it was a complete ripoff of Narnia written by C.K. Lewis. I used to love those books, so I decided to kind of write my own version. It had the same premise, the same plot, the characters were pretty much the same. It was nothing special, like I said. I wrote about 3 of these stories and I loved every second of it. Now, let's fast forward to middle school me. I upgraded from a clipboard and lined pieces of paper to a 5-subject notebook, and I wrote multiple stories in multiple notebooks, and I filled them all the way to the brim. Instead of copying C.K. Lewis, I was now copying Rick Riordan and writing about gods and demigods. I created a whole pantheon of gods, demigods, a unique magic system, and complex plot threads that my 8-year-old brain could have never even fathomed before. Now, I don't have any of these notebooks on me, but I wish I did so that I could read you guys some of my early writing. But alas, it was not meant to be. But then, somewhere along the way, I stopped writing. I got busy with soccer, keeping my grades up, and whatever else middle school me was preoccupied with. But then when I started high school, I picked it back up, and seriously this time. However, I never actually thought about being an author. In fact, at this point in time, I actually wanted to be a YouTuber, and I had a YouTube channel at the time. I was making Minecraft videos with my friends, and I actually built up a decent audience on that channel. But then I was forced to stop when I had to change schools in the middle of my first semester of my freshman year of high school. At this point in time, I was struggling to make friends, my grades were slipping, and I was feeling more isolated than ever. But then an idea hit me. Now, let me paint the scene for you. It's 2014 of my freshman year of high school. The MCU is in full swing, and it was one of the few things bringing me joy in my life. They had just released their slate of movies for phases 2 and 3, and I was hype. I was sitting in the back of my world history class, not paying attention at all, thinking about all these movies that were to come and all these stories that were being told. And while I was daydreaming, I had the idea of, what if I created my own version of the MCU, but with books? And what did I do from there? Well, I got to planning. In my notebook that I was supposed to be taking notes on the ancient Egyptian civilizations in, I started planning out a whole bunch of book ideas. I came up with prospective titles, plots, and I got to world building. Thus, the Eternal Keyverse was born. I used these worlds to escape, to bring brightness to my days which were quite frankly full of darkness. Eventually, I found my way to Wattpad, and I started posting my books on there. And then somehow, some way, people found them. And not only did they find my books, they liked them. But as high school went on, I started to make friends. I joined the soccer team. I became captain of the soccer team. I started doing better in school. I no longer needed writing. But I didn't stop, because writing was no longer a means of escape for me. I was on a mission, and I intended on seeing it all the way through. Sharing my work on Wattpad was one of the greatest things that I ever did for myself. I met some wonderful people, grew my writing skill exponentially, and connected with the community of people who loved all of the same things that I did. My efforts eventually gained me a spot on the Wattpad Creators Program. I amassed over 2,000 followers and have 500,000 reads across all of my books. I even got to make a little bit of money off of my books too. Back in 2022, I even got to go to WatCon, where I met writers who got their books turned into movies and received publishing deals from Wattpad and other publishers. All in all, my time on Wattpad was a great one. But let me take you to the summer of 2024. My contract with the Wattpad Creators Program was over, and I was notified that they were not intending on renewing it. Over the years, the platform that I grew to love was rapidly changing into something that I no longer recognized. My community had dwindled, and I found myself isolated again. But I was still writing, I was still working on my idea. It was the thing that brought me to Wattpad in the first place. It was the thing that made me start writing all those years ago. And I was not intending to quit, even if Wattpad no longer wanted me. So, with no community and a platform that was not prioritizing me as a creator, what was I to do? That brings us to now, 2025, here on my YouTube channel. It hasn't even been a year yet, and I'm almost at 1,000 subscribers. My videos have been watched over 30,000 times collectively. I've met tons of wonderful people, been exposed to opportunities I wouldn't have otherwise, and most importantly, I've taken the steps to turn my one idea, my dream, into a reality. And you know what started it all? What got me here? That original idea I had, all the way back in 2014 when I was sitting in the back of my history class, writing down book ideas instead of paying attention. All those lonely nights I spent writing my stories, all the rejections I got from submitting drafts that clearly weren't ready yet, every time one of my writing videos flopped on YouTube, all of those heartbreaks were caused because I decided to chase my idea. But do you know what else my idea brought me? So much more. All the pain and loneliness that I experienced was more than worth it. I say all this not to convince you to become a writer, even though you probably should become one. Because maybe you're not a writer. Maybe you're a painter or an actor or a sculptor, or maybe you knit sweaters. But whatever hobby you have, I'm sure that it all started with a single idea. And if you don't have a hobby or a passion, I implore you to find one. It's in there within you somewhere. You just have to go find it. I'm sure you've had an idea or two in your head that you've ignored for whatever reason. And I'm here to tell you to take a chance on yourself. Try something new. You never know what might happen or where it might take you. Because at the end of the day, all it takes is one idea to change your life forever.